be getting that. So now we got OBS properly doing the audio there. What's that? No, I know. I paused it because the audio is not being sent properly to. Huh. Yeah. Now we're starting to hear us, but we're not getting the desktop audio, which I don't understand. So hang on a sec. What the hell's going on with that? Do. Fuck! It was working fine right up until it didn't. What about when we get down here and I play it? No. Chrome playback on that. Chrome playback on that. Yeah, no, we are definitely having some technical difficulties here, which we're going to have to suss out. That's a little bit bizarre. Yeah, we didn't have this problem last time because desktop audio didn't have a problem. Check. I'm just going through the different windows here. I don't even think you guys can be heard right now on the stream. Okay, here we go.
Yep, all right.
Okay, now we got the monitor of built-in audio analog stereo being sent through the recording channel through OBS. I don't know why these settings changed since the last time, because I did save them. But anyway...
And have them, yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea, but wow. All right, so let's take it back to where we were. Down it back to right about there. And hey, let's continue this intro and all right, guys. Robert J. Morris here. And okay, I'm not sure where I'm going to start this because I'm a little bit angry, just kind of going through some things here, and it's just driving me nuts. How people can't get their heads out of their asses and see that this has been a setup for quite a while is beyond me. I have no idea how they do it. I swear to God, I have no idea how they. Well, I mean, we all know how they do it, but I swear I don't know how it works. First off, I just did a video. Another user, Your TV Unplugged, sent me a link to the Pray for Paris clothing line. So I did a quick little video on that, kind of bitching about it. But anyway, it goes deeper than that. First off, just that alone. Let's look at that first, I guess. It takes a little bit of time. Not much. It takes a little bit of time to select out the clothing that you're going to have. And the prints. Somebody has to design the graphics. And then you got to get at least enough merchandise made so that you can stick them on models and then photograph them. And then on top of that, you got to get the pictures arranged, designed, put into a database. By the way, you also have to make sure you have enough orders set in place for your distribution points. And since this is a worldwide event, you can imagine this is a huge bloody fucking distribution order. I'm telling you. Anyway, and we haven't even gotten to the point now where we have to build like the actual delivery system database, which is probably handled by a distribution, which, you know, that takes more than a day or so just to sign the papers on that. Oh, when are people gonna start to realize? And then you got you got this thing in Facebook where you can overlay the French flag on your bloody portrait, which, you know, I mean, obviously this is just a huge social experiment, really, that you know, Facebook is quite well known for holding to, you know, to herd people, move them around, and manipulate them into things. Now, look at this. I mean, you got a bunch of numbskulls thinking that they're supporting the Parisians. No. Oh my God! And how long did it take to write the code for that? How come they didn't include a Lebanese flag then? Huh? You cheeky son. Oh, it just drives me absolutely batty. Okay. Like, I mean, the Lebanese bombs that went off, as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but I was doing some backtracking through videos. I think the only person that I can recall who actually paid attention about the Lebanese bombing was Kip from Kip's Clips. You know, he had a little rant of his own and mentioned the Lebanese bombing in Beirut. So, man, and you got all these bloody Muppets running around on Facebook. Oh, let's support Paris. Let's support Paris. Like, what the hell? I mean, I almost missed the Beirut, but I didn't even find out until the night of the 13th after doing a bunch of research. I just happened to come across it and went, holy shit, there was a bombing in Beirut. Wow. Anyway, I wish these people would get their heads out of their asses. Peace. You know, at the end of the day, really all you're doing is proving that false flags work, is proving that false flags work, that false flags work.
Desperate as that sounds, yeah, yeah.
And that brings us to our introduction. We've got basically a continuation of last week's show happening here. Alongside, we got my co-host, Fear Porn Propaganda, aka Conspiracy, or as I like to call him, Steve. And we got FYGP back in the house. How you doing, guys?
Excellent, of course.
Doing great, Rob. Nice to be back.
I look all shadowy. That was weird. Okay.
and the top of your head's cut off, too. Conspiracy? Yeah. We're just gonna look at Conspiracy's mouth as we go.
You like that?
See it.
Is that better? Is that better? Worse? Better or worse? Oh, there we go. Now I can. Oh, that's hilarious. Now I can see it.
Hey, yeah, that's better. So we got the front cam and the back cam. The back cam is still just a proof of concept, just to say I can do it, just feeding in a crappy-ass HDMI. And I bought a really shitty $30 gizmo off of Amazon. Yeah, I know, fuck Amazon. I know, don't, yeah, get the hate mail coming. But anyway, yeah, it was $30. You get what you pay for. That's why the contrast and the color's so shit. But anyway, I digress. So we left off last week, guys. Shit, we covered a whole lot of shit, but we really didn't get into the nitty-gritty of the contemporary aspects of division tactics, which I'd like to get into today. Things like these George Soros-funded campaigns, you know, allegedly, like BLM, Antifa, even going as far back as the raid on Libya. Against Gaddafi. Soros was involved with that as well. And apparently he's also involved with Syria and Israel. Any comments?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. And, you know, you wonder where the real peace movement went that would be protesting against all these wars that are going on. And, like, it has been silenced by these other movements that focus on this trivial stuff that is going on these minute issues. I haven't seen many people protesting the war in Libya back when it was happening. Yeah. I've been seeing much more people protesting, I don't know, the fact that there was a terrorist attack and putting up those flag emoji covers on Facebook. which doesn't change anything. Like, it's the
No.
most stupid thing you can pretty much do, because, like, there's no purpose to it. There's absolutely none.
I think it makes people feel like they're doing something to support. It's like putting a ribbon on your car to support, like Mums Against Drunk Driving, or there's all these little groups, and it's like, oh well, I bought a ribbon and I put it on my car. Oh yeah, so I'm totally in support, and because I have a ribbon on my car, you can see that I'm fully in support, so I don't have to do anything else.
Oh yeah, that ribbon thing was insane.
Oh God, I mean, they got a different color ribbon for everything. I want to put out a brown ribbon, like, to give a shit. Here's a give a shit movement. Fuck's sakes.
I back then, a while back when what's his face, Bush was still in office, I made a ribbon that said "Worship your Antichrist."
Well, that's just wrong. That's bad. If I had a rolled up newspaper, I'd smack you in the nose with it and just say, that's bad. You don't do that. Actually, funny story. My buddy's dog, actually, it was funny because one of the neighbors has a little girl, came over and said, I want to pet your dog. And I said, that's fine. He's friendly. Go ahead. He's very friendly. So she goes and pets him, and he sniffs her face and, gives her a big, big kiss. And then turns around, lifts up a leg, and tries to pee on her. I was like, don't pee on little girls. That's bad. Anyway, obviously he liked her so much that he wanted to mark his territory. He's just a dog, so obviously, Mom, though, was there and watched, and she just tried to choke back a laugh because she thought it was funny as hell. But I digress. She doesn't want to audibly laugh at her little girl getting peed upon by a dog, of course. But for sake of conversation, what I'm trying to say here is that, ultimately, at the end of the day, we're faced with trying to make conscious decisions of what and who to support, and how do you go about supporting. Oh crap, do you support with your money, which most people have been robbed, so there's no trust system there? Do you support by putting a ribbon or a bow on your friggin' aerial on your car, or on your window, or on your bumper sticker, or what? Do you sew something to your backpack? People are disconnected already with the problems in society, but I think society's gotten so large in terms of a global scope that it's really hard to manage. So you want to try to feel sorry for everybody and think that you're trying to make some kind of an impact. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really work. Because
but it makes people feel better, right? That's what it's essentially why most people do it. They want to show that they are like a good person because they stand against this certain thing.
Well, okay, I think the bigger reason is because if nobody does it, then it looks like then the opposite people or whatever that they're protesting will be able to go, hey, look, nobody's opposing us. Let's just push this whatever it is through. Because that's usually what they're protesting, is something that they're trying to stop us pushing through for some reason.
I think you're both.
I did it. I protested when they were trying to basically stop medical cannabis being associated with certain ways, and there was reasons we had to go out and put ourselves out there and say, hey, we're here, we exist and we're dying. Look at these old people that are in wheelchairs and all these things. They're using the cannabis. Don't take it away. If you take it away, these people are going to die. That's keeping them alive. And so we had to show that was going on. And I think that has gotten to this level of marketing where if you go to certain protests, you see people are all wearing the same clothes and they have the same sign and stuff. That's something different. The real thing is when you go to a thing and people are all making their own signs, you know, and you're putting their own thing together, and it's all you know, everybody's helping each other out.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're people. They're real people. I mean, these so-called people, they're all wearing the same clothes and stuff. It's like a cult.
Pretty much. Yeah. Can't argue with that.
It's like and it's all like strategic, you know.
Yeah.
What you learn in that field, excuse me, in the protesting world, is that they do demonstrations, and the demonstration is to get noticed enough to bring out enough people, so then the news will come, which will show it on a wider scale.
Well, that's the belief, anyway. That's
because exactly that's the reason, like, why they do it.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know, and when those
the real people, not the fake people.
No, but when the media comes out,
they could already have them.
They've already got their entire narrative already figured out. They know exactly what they're going to do the second that they come out to question and document the people's opinions. And when they come out to cover this stuff, I mean, it's already pre-written. We've seen multiple examples of this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like those aren't real people. Those are people that are paid to be there for certain purposes from whoever their employer is.
No, but there are real people. I'm talking about the real
Well, there is real people.
Yeah.
But those people you're talking about aren't.
Yeah.
Those aren't real.
Yeah. But,
those are like provocateur type of scenarios.
Yeah. Well, at events, yes, at these events. But I'm just saying, though, during the regular humdrum day in, day out, you know, the day in the life of any regular person, they aren't trying to expend a lot of energy on trying to figure this world out. They're already super stressed about just life in general and their daily grind. And then they hear about some travesty that happens on the other side of the planet that they'll probably never see, have never seen, and might have one or two friends that may have seen or know somebody who has seen that place, yet they want to try to do something to support it. And, you know, placing a photo image of a French flag in the case of, like, you know, Pray for Paris, yeah, it shows your support. But really all you're doing is actually proving that Facebook demographic needling is actually in effect. And by needling, I'm talking about quantifying social demographics and how much their marketing is working. That's all they're doing.
Pretty much, yeah. And then selling you those ads with those T-shirts with Pray for Paris on it, right?
Yeah.
And you got to look at who's sponsoring it and stuff. I mean, is there banks involved? I mean, it's like, if there's banks involved, then there's profiting involved, and there's the whole, you know, what do you call it, powers that shouldn't be, like, looming about.
Well, the thing
that in my opinion, I don't know if that's true, but I'm saying it's my opinion.
Hey, but the things that got me about that whole Pray for Paris, and I'm only using it as an example, so anybody who is offended by this, please just rest easy. But my opinion about this whole clothing line that came out, it came out within 24 hours of the event. There's no physical impossible way that you can organize a clothing line for distribution on a worldwide network inside of 24 hours. I don't care who you are, unless you knew about it in advance. There's just no frickin' way.
Yeah, good point. I mean, as soon as the attack was over, you pretty much saw already, like, posts about T-shirts with hashtags Pray for Paris on it.
Yeah.
And they were all over the internet. You could buy them probably on all kinds of online stores and order them home.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely amazing how they got it going so quickly. You would think that they would at least need a couple of days after the event to set everything up.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was the key to realize that, like, yeah, there was setup. Is like, you can't. There's not a possibility because you can do it yourself. You can try to freaking create shirts, and it ain't gonna happen in less than a freaking 48 hours. It's just like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, you did.
Multiple lines and graphics in men's and females, you know, and
Yeah.
distribution across the world. And meanwhile,
I mean,
while
someone should like demonstrate that, and then like be like, look, I could not do this. I mean, how could they do it?
yeah, someone should demonstrate that, and you know, go to the top of the pecking order. Go with the best companies. I mean, gosh, I mean, it's mind-boggling. And by the way, let's contrast that to the fact that the Las Vegas shooting, which took place in a casino like based hotel, no cameras running, like in a place where there's more cameras than you could imagine, and by a guy who doesn't have the skill.
They should have been able to time everything by the cameras.
Look, with the amount of gear that this guy was allegedly carrying up to his room, a Navy SEAL probably doesn't have the strength to carry that shit in one trip. He would have had to make multiple trips. And you telling me no cameras caught that? I mean, in a world where we can create a t-shirt line inside of fucking 5 or 6 or 8 hours, we can't have a casino. I mean, they catch people all the time, especially outside of the casino, within the hotel, because they're too stupid to keep their mouth shut. So they speak and they get caught on cameras all the time doing stuff. That's how they get caught. However, yeah, this event, yeah, I don't know. I call bullshit.
Oh yeah, the Las Vegas shooting. There's a lot of fishy stuff going on there, and like we will never get a full explanation as to what exactly happened there from, you know, the mainstream media. Never. Like,
no, I don't think.
Was there more people maybe involved? Was there, you know?
No, well, you know, it happened on that, I believe, Yom Kippur. So it was like predicted by Zach. Like he totally like called that out like ahead of time, and it's, you know, on record. And so it's like, you know, that was essentially the new 9/11.
The 9/11, the guns, right?
Yep.
But there's been so many of these events recently, and like, truly, people, I don't know if they can like remember all of them, or would, like, I don't know if like you would ask somebody about like the most recent shooting, they probably couldn't name it, because I don't think most people actually get as emotionally invested in these types of things
yeah, I know.
Like the mainstream media believes.
Well, it's like we were talking about.
No, because it's like
MH17
every Monday, you know.
Yeah,
we were talking. What do you remember? What do you remember last? And then it's every Monday. They always remember to Monday. So if whatever happens in the week, that's going to be focused on all the way back to the Monday. And then like if there's like nothing that happens, then they're only going to focus on that. So like my understanding of people is they don't retain a certain amount of information until you give them that information to retain. And then they just take out the other information that they were previously were retaining, because you can go, oh, do you remember that other one that you were talking about last time? And they're like, no, I'm talking about this one now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I guess you're just focused on whatever's happening.
They're
whatever they, you know, are pushing on that time frame or whatever. That's my perception is watch it after the fact, and then you're not affected. Well, like yesterday, whatever happened yesterday, oh, you know, it's like, I'm not affected today by yesterday.
You gotta watch it. You gotta watch it as it happens and as it carries out, because there's always initial information that gets scrubbed later. I mean, if you miss a beat in the very first opening part of the saga, whatever event it is, there'll always be information that gets scrubbed out later. Part and parcel, 9/11, the plane that went down in Pennsylvania. I mean,
93.
Yeah, a lot of
Saturn
residents.
number.
A lot of residents went and a lot of residents went and said they heard explosions in the air. The thing blew up in the air and crashed down on the ground. But all of those reports that came out that day got scrubbed from the media, like within the next week, and then they completely built a new narrative. And you can't go back.
That brings to mind a bunch of things. I mean, it's like the Thelema, for instance, is like a thing, comes from the OTO, and that's Aleister Crowley and all that. And they would repeat each other with 93.
Okay.
Each other with 93.
This isn't a gematria. This isn't a gematria podcast, bud. Let's
stay
away from it for now.
I wasn't saying.
What I'm trying to say.
You said that fight.
What I'm trying to say is that the information that happens in the very beginning of the event is what is the most important information, because 9 times out of 10 it gets scrubbed out of the entire narrative. Another example would be look at the Pentagon itself. I mean, that thing, again, like the casino in Las Vegas, was like the most defended part of American property.
Mm-hmm.
With what, they didn't even catch a camera glimpse of a plane crashing into it, because goddamn well it wasn't a fucking plane. Let's just scratch logic into this whole bit here. I mean, this is absolutely disgusting when you start to think about it. And sorry, I didn't mean that as a diss to conspiracy. I didn't mean that as a diss. What I was trying to say though is that all of these events, when they first get covered, the media's out there on the ground and they're talking to people. And the things that people say are very, very important and indicative of their experience, because they're not going to lie. They're going to, oh my God, there's explosions here, there's explosions there, this happened or that happened. And then a couple days later, that information always gets lost. And then it starts to build up whatever narrative the media agencies want to build. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I remember full well hearing that the Pennsylvania crash was an explosion in the air, and that's what the local residents said. But guess what? Those local residents were never talked to again, and we never heard their stories. New York firefighters.
Ooh, I didn't know about that. That's interesting.
New York firefighters who heard lots of booms and stuff, and there's a few people who went and investigated the fact that there was potentially incendiary explosives in the buildings. Well, guess what? How many people have been murdered or just not necessarily living with us today? There's definitely a power involved in taking care of loose ends, I guess you could say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And remember
when you document all of them that happen in a certain order, and it's like, oh, a couple of days later, oh, here's another one. Oh, a couple of days later, oh, here's another one. Oh, a couple of days later, oh, here's another one. You're just like, and I'm like, putting on the timeline, and I'm like, okay, this is just kind of like a weird thing that's happening over and over again. It's like crazy. And then I start looking at the deeper elements of how many people are involved, and that's what you're talking about, because then you put all those people together, you have a big number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's just disgusting. So let's get into this George Soros guy. FYGP. What do you think about this guy?
Well, I mean, there's a very telling interview on 60 Minutes with him himself, and I mean, it's him basically saying that he doesn't care about other people, and that the most important thing is his own profit. I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what he said there. because he was asked about if he is behind, the stock market crash in East Asia of the early 2000s, I think it is believed. And actually, the country of Malaysia is blaming him personally for being behind that crash that sent a lot of economies into a crisis in East Asia. And the thing that you have to know about this guy is that he is scrupulous and he does not care how his money is made. So he will not shy away from any methods to make his billions. And that's, I think, how he got rich. I mean, you hear a lot of times that he was a Nazi collaborator, and I've done some research on that, and yeah, it does turn out that he was a Jew in Hungary during the Holocaust, and that he pretty much escaped it by living with a German stepdad, and that in some cases he would tell on his fellow Jews if needed, and he personally said about these years of his life that this was the years that shaped him, and that he doesn't feel any guilt for what he did, and that he didn't feel any particular sadness when he saw his fellow people get killed, I guess.
Yeah.
So
he is a Bohemian Club member.
Bohemian Grove or Bohemian?
Yeah. Bohemian Grove, that they call it, Bohemian Club.
Sure. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any photos of him.
I'm not sure about that either. I think he's beyond
they get
that.
rid of their.
No, I think he's beyond that. I think he's up there with the Rothschilds. He's up there beyond. He's beyond Bohemian Grove. This guy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely one of the top people that we know the name of.
Yeah.
So, when you take a look at everything that he's funding, and it goes from, obviously Black Lives Matter was pretty much started by him by giving $33 million, 33.
Yeah, $33 million.
To the protests in Ferguson. And then he also started a bunch of, projects in Eastern Europe, funding them, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, I believe it's called. And it's basically a bunch of media operations in Eastern Europe that will promote politicians that are favorable towards the policies of, the West and the United States, and I guess, the banksters, the global elites that run everything. And with these NGOs, non-governmental organizations, people like him have been able to infiltrate the internal policies and the internal kind of political discussion and decision making in a lot of countries. And everybody complains about the Russians allegedly hacking and meddling into the U.S. election. Well, people such as George Soros have been meddling in your elections, and if you can call it like that, and spreading misinformation and funding radicals for decades. So I don't see any condemnation for him hacking your election, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, I I decided to go look back and see if George Soros had anything to do with Libya, because something was itching the inside of my brain. I was like, okay, I think there's a connection. I remember hearing something about this, right? And sure enough, I don't know if you can see on the screen share if you guys are watching the watch page right now, but
I am.
Apparently, Yeah. He was completely and totally active in the well, in what took place in the airstrikes over Libya and taking down Gaddafi. Now, this was done through what was it? What's the global group called? Shit, it's right here somewhere. Oh yeah, the Open Society Foundation.
Yeah, Open Society.
Yeah.
And all the those protest things that are essentially wearing the same colored shirts and whatever, and have the same logos and wearing the same. We're from that.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. I mean, the rest of us powerless citizens that are like, oh, well, what can one man do? Well, if you've got $25 billion, you can pretty much do anything. Nobody has to give you a title. Nobody has to give you a fucking country. You could pretty much just work in the shadows and do whatever you like. And guess what? He's one of these guys. Bottom fucking line.
Oh yeah, pretty much. And like he doesn't need to be president or anything to have power, because obviously it's like the money that's top.
All he has to do is fund presidents. All he has to do is create organizations and groups. I mean, I highlighted a spot here on Wikipedia. Oh yeah, we know it's a great source of information for well-known facts, but. You know, it says he's a well-known supporter of American progressive and American liberal political causes. And dispenses his donations through his foundation, the Open Society Foundations. Between 1979 and 2011, Soros donated more than $11 billion to various philanthropic causes. By 2017, his donations on civil initiatives to reduce poverty and increase transparency, and on scholarships and universities around the world. Now, this is a funny bit, because we know that the scholarships, the funding for universities, this is where you are catalyzing kids. This is where you're taking kids and training them to think a certain fucking way. And that's exactly where his money's going. This is how we are going to create a new kind of person, a new kind of way of thinking for this next generation. God damn, it makes me so fucking sick. I want to punch my fucking monitor in the goddamn screen. Ooh.
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah, it's exactly right. I mean, funding, education, and through that, and they want to do it. And actually, in his native Hungary, there is a university that is basically funded by him, and it's being shut down by the Hungarian government right now because, you know, they don't like Soros. And they've shown it many times. They're passing, you know, anti-Soros bills pretty much that are, you know, limiting the influence of him in his native Hungary. So he was born there, and like the people there see him for who he truly is, and are pretty much doing anything to like hinder his influence. And like it's one of the only countries that is going against that, and against those think tanks. Another example would probably be Russia, because Russia declared NGOs to be I think they basically told them that they need to register everything and like put down every little detail of what they're doing, because, in order not to like do stuff such as you know they did in Libya, pretty much, like or in the United States even, like funding all those radical groups and giving them the same posters, the same T-shirts, and sending them out on the streets. And like they have pretty strict rules in many countries against these non-governmental organizations to prevent them from influencing their internal issues. And I think it's you know, a well thought out thing to do. And these countries that are doing that are being demonized as being undemocratic, when in fact what they're really trying to do is like protect their democracy, right? It's pretty ironic.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And you know, the funny thing is though is that like we get I don't know. When I say we, I mean the other we. I'm talking about all the people who just work their hard day. They come home from work. They don't want to be messing around with society talk and this and that and the next thing because life is just stressful enough as it is. And I get that. I mean I completely and totally fucking understand. Um, but again, going back to what the topic of our conversation is about division, is that their only source of information, which they've been taught to trust, is the mainstream media. So that's their window into the whole fucking piece of the pie.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of propaganda.
Yeah. You know, and then what's their options after that? Well, they could listen to idiots like us go on with our, you know, our tinfoil hat theories and everything else. Even though we do provide a lot of facts and a lot of data, data by which is being removed on a daily basis from the internet, so that we can't even support our own opinions and truths. It's getting harder and harder, and I fear it's getting to the point where we are going to lose.
I mean, you know, the problem is that, like, pretty much, like, Google, which is the biggest, like, search engine, is filtering out the results that are not, you know, seen as like popular truth. Like, they're not going to bring up the theories that actually support 9/11 being a false flag. They're going to bring up a Snopes article or a, you know, what is it, fact-checking article about how 9/11 wasn't a false flag, and then they basically like say how all of the points are irrelevant that any so-called conspiracy theorists are making, but they never go into detail on exactly how they're irrelevant and never debunk them, because obviously, like, if you have steel beams that are clean cut, that are like you can see, like, it's like a demolition, pretty much. Like, the steel beams are they're clean, right? They're not they're basically cut like you put an explosive exactly at that place, and that is exactly what it would look like if you had, like, a controlled demolition.
No, that's absolutely true. Even controlled demolition experts would said, I don't even know if I could do it that good. Like, seriously, like, there's just no fucking way that thing could have came down on its own by some mishap. No, it had to be a controlled demolition. And of course, you know, WC7 is I mean, we're beating a dead horse here right now, because it's a topic that's been covered time and time again by so many different people. Yet, you know what's funny that I found is that the more people I ask, the majority still believe, like, they actually do believe that it was an inside job, but they still go look for the government for support. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, investigate 9/11, it's like never going to happen. So.
Not really.
Not really, you know.
But hey,
they put out like the what is it? Afterwards, they came out with this report. What's it called? That's pretty much everything we heard. Like, they rushed in a report and that basically said, yeah, it was like 19 guys with box cutters, and that's it.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
But hey, let's look at Snopes. You mentioned Snopes earlier.
Yep.
We got
yeah.
George Soros funded Ferguson protests and Black Lives Matter. This is a Snopes fact check. Let's see what Snopes has to say about that.
They're of course going to say it.
So okay. Right. So okay. Oh, it's rated at claim. The claim is George Soros donated $33 million to fund rioting Ferguson protest groups. See examples in a link. Okay, go fuck your hat. Rating. It says it's a mixture. What's true? A grant-making network founded by George Soros provided funding to some groups that engaged in Ferguson-related protest activities. Okay. What's false? This is funny. This is a clincher. What's false? George Soros gave money to various groups for the express purpose of promoting Ferguson-related protests and riots. So it's like, I didn't tell them to do it. I just gave them the money and fuck it. What they did is what they did.
Pretty much.
That's the gist of the fucking story. So,
right.
Thanks, Snopes.
Like it isn't my fault. It isn't like that's basically what they're saying. It's not Soros' fault. Like, just maybe couldn't have anticipated it.
He didn't do it for the express purpose, but he did give them the funding. I don't know, man.
For what did he give him the funding if not for that purpose?
But here's the weird bit that I found here. They have an origin, and the origin says the Hungarian-born multi-billionaire business magnate and philanthropist George Soros has in recent years acquired a mythos rivaling that of the Rosicrucians, the Illuminati, and the Trilateral Commission. A shadowy mastermind who wields tremendous wealth and influence to furtively manipulate events worldwide in furtherance of a conspiracy for establishing a new world order.
And there can't be any conspiracy going on. Like, there's never been a conspiracy in your life. Like, there's no such thing as a conspiracy.
Oh, wait. They even go as far to say various rumors have claimed Soros controls everything from the international illegal drug trade to gun manufacturers and this very website, Snopes.com.
It's kind of hard to believe, like, what they're saying when, like, pretty much all they're touting is the line that of the mainstream news, and they never really explain or debunk anything. They just say it's false because CNN said it.
That's right. Yeah,
that's all they do. Really, it's false because we say so.
Well, they were given some authority, right? I mean, Fox News, CNN gave them authority and what have you, and it's like, okay, now we can do these little headers. You can say there's a claim, give it a rating. We'll say what's true, what's false. We'll give it an origin, and then people just believe it because, hey, it's on the internet. It's got to be real.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. I'm going to take a look at like what the things are that they're coming right now because they have like a hot 50, I guess.
Yeah. What about the owners, the creators of Snopes? Didn't they come under some hot water themselves because they're just a couple of fuck-offs themselves?
Oh, yeah, I heard that it was like 1.5 years ago. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but like, oh, man. I have to look it up now.
Yeah, I forget myself. Don't worry. It's not. I mean, there's so much crap you have to digest in a day. Fuck. Yeah. But my lord. But then here, hang on.
Oh, look at this. Oh, there's like a Snopes article, and it's actually on Soros, and the title is "Was Snopes.com busted for our CEO's ties to George Soros?" And then they basically have a picture.
Really?
And like somebody claimed that the guy standing next to him is the Snopes CEO. So I mean, you want to take a look at this?
Yeah, fire me the link in Skype, and I'll shoot that up.
I sent it to you.
Got it.
I sent it to you.
The hell?
Was Snopes.com busted?
Is that happening on your screen too? There's like this little blinky thing happening.
Oh, there's just a bit of a delay. You'll get it. It'll pop up now.
Yeah.
Okay, so the claim, Snopes.com, is an extremely liberal site with an agenda to discredit conservatives, paid for either by George Soros or the Clintons or maybe Facebook. Rating false. Oh, so they're rating themselves. I love it. That's great.
Right.
It's totally false.
All right. Yeah, it's false. Case closed. Nothing to see here. Move along,
An
people.
inconsistent meme, like, what is an inconsistent meme? It's either true or false, like.
What does what's an inconsistent meme, though? Like,
what's a meme? Like, memes are completely inconsistent, mostly.
They're not. They're not meant to be
not
consistent. Real. That's hilarious.
There it is.
Oh, jeez. Hey, you guys, carry on for about 5 or 6 minutes. I'll be right back. Yeah.
Yep.
Just razzle and dazzle. Yeah. I have to go have.
I guess they're gonna say, like, yeah, sure. I guess that what they're gonna go on about is how, like, these people are not their CEOs or something like that, and how it's just fake news or something like that.
Yeah, more than likely.
Yeah.
I don't know. I never trust that stuff.
I don't know what they're going on about.
It's just like any meme to me seems like it has an agenda. I'm just like, you have to figure out what that is. Reminds me of one of those newspaper things, comics. You know, like newspaper comics. Mm-hmm. Some of them are real sophisticated, and like if you don't get it, then you just like seem like an idiot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know that.
I think that some memes are like that. They're like trying to be sophisticated only to certain crowds, like a demographic. And then if you don't fall into that demographic, you don't get it. It doesn't affect you on that level, and it does affect those people that are demographically designed to go towards.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's my opinion on it. I don't know if that's for sure.
No, and I agree basically. And like, I think the memes, like, they have a lot of like influence, you could say, because like people these days have a really short attention span, and like they're not going to watch maybe a 15-minute video about how like the I don't know, the Libyan civil war got started, but maybe they might stumble across a meme like about talking about it with humor or something like that, and saying, what are we doing there, or something like that, and then they might look into it more. And like, I think it's like not a bad thing to wake people up. And I'm skipping through the Soaps article while I'm talking as well. Basically,
it says, look at it. It says Aurora, and it says Illumination series. I thought that said Illuminati. I was like, what? And then Aurora made me think of the Aurora shooting that we were bringing that up earlier. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But I think what they're basically saying is, we're not just doing propaganda from the liberal side, right? Source is not just doing propaganda for the liberal side, because they're saying what it tells us is the meme makes no sense. Soros and the DNC are our only client ? They're the same entity. Even if you pretend that Soros and the DNC are the same person or organization for a moment, the statement still falls apart when you consider that this claim also hinges on Facebook being a client as well. So it's like just minutia, because like all they did in the meme is bring up the picture of Soros meeting with the CEO, and they don't deny that these are in fact their CEOs, right? So, like, you know, obviously they do have ties to them, right? And
yeah,
all they do is like say on.
Well, you know, okay.
Yeah.
But look closer. I mean, it's a handshake, right? So that handshake looks like one of those Freemasonry handshakes.
Yeah.
It looked like he's like basically, I think a second degree or something like that.
Yeah, it does look a lot like the typical handshake that you see so many times. And like I don't know, but typically I put my thumb more upwards towards like the other thumb of the person. Like, you don't put it across the hand usually, the thumb, right? So
exactly. It's very determined position to put your fingers.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, but one of the problems is like like I don't know, you could argue it like that it's just a coincidence and this and that, like it could be, but you know, it's like
I'll give you some input
yeah,
here.
I wouldn't be stuck with that.
Of my impression
Yeah.
of that style of handshake is, okay, if you're a construction worker and you're shaking your mate's hand, I mean, it's going to be an aggressive handshake, and thumbs are out. But this is a commissary kind of a handshake where it's like there's an agreement of sorts beyond just saying hello. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, like bring up a picture of the Freemason second degree handshake, and you'll see,
Right.
like if it's comparable.
Oh, good. My Pornhub links didn't show there. Oof, thank God. Freemason handshake.
You're looking for like the book one, like where it shows like the image, like a picture of
Well, there's different ones.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
yeah, but they're gonna show like people doing handshakes. I want the actual like book version that shows the image. Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Those. Yeah. So look where the thumb is,
Let's see here. Hang on. Yeah.
and then compare it to that guy.
All right. So that's that.
Looks like this one, the far bottom right. Whoops. Okay, where'd you go?
Sorry. Yeah. It's back. Just give it a second. Sorry about the delay.
All right, go back to this like image. Okay, don't click on it. No, don't click on it.
Oh, it's there. Don't worry. It's
Okay. Yeah, so I think the grip of the excellent master, it looks like it's close to that one. Or maybe this apprentice of the grip of the fellow craft.
that's what
Yeah,
it looks like.
that's what I was thinking. The grip of an excellent the thing's in the way, but of a something excellent master. I can't see what it says because the birdie's in the way.
Sorry.
The bird is in the way. What does it say there?
Grip of the most excellent master. Yeah, that's what it says. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So then then go back and look at the guy where we were just at, so we can compare.
Yeah, don't worry. It's gonna flip back and forth, and then it'll flip back.
Okay.
It looks very.
Yeah, that's pretty close. I mean, it looks like on the actual Freemason one, it's more like on the knuckles.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. On the end of the finger is basically where the thumb goes.
So it may be it may be not exactly that one, but obviously we're on something, and maybe it's higher up, and we just because if you look at the knuckles, he doesn't have the finger on the knuckles; it's above the knuckles.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I'm wondering if that's a specific one, but I don't see it up here.
The photo of Soros and the
But there may be another page of this for all I know.
There most likely is, but I mean, at the end of the day, though, it's definitely something.
It's clear that it's a secret handshake. It's not just a normal handshake. We can all agree with that, right?
Yeah. I mean, and for those listening, I mean, you might be thinking, like, why are we going on about bloody handshakes? Like, what's in a handshake? What you can make anything out of anything, and I know there's a lot of arguments that may, purport to that, but at the end of the day, though, you have to look at the reasoning why these meetings are held, and when they're held in a certain fashion. They're held almost in a sense of ritual, and these people
definitely
have rituals. I mean, that's the way it's set up. And these public displays also signal other folks who are privy. So, I mean...
And some of those public displays are also rituals.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally believe that they're all rituals. I mean, everything that they do. I mean, all the way through, like, all the G summits, like, all through all these Rockefeller meetings, like, all of these things are rituals.
Mm-hmm.
All the way to Bohemian Grove. But, I mean, Bohemian Grove, I think, is actually kind of that's at the smaller tier of this mess. If that makes any sense. I think I almost think that there's a caste society to the entire controller system, and I think Bohemian Grove is kind of like the kids' playground in terms of the controller network.
Yeah, they're only doing the mock human sacrifices, right? They're doing the mock ones, I guess.
Yeah,
No, I agree there. I mean, basically, like the real the real important meetings of, like, you said it right there, like it's a kid's playground, I guess, the Bohemian Grove, because the names that we know about.
What do they do? They, like, put on plays and stuff. I mean, I think it's a representation of what they do when they go out and do, they separate from. It's like a camp, like when people, when they were younger, they'd go to camp, their parents would drop them off at a camp or something, and they'd be all stuck with these other people for, like, a certain amount of time, and then by the time they left, they would, like, didn't want to leave each other, because they had all their little relationships that they formed throughout that time frame. Well, think about that on, like, a elite level. This is like an elite camp.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And they separate, and then they go and they pull off their things that they were talking about in camp, if you will. And they put off on their plays, and their plays kind of represent what they're going to do in real life, if you will. And we only know that they do plays because some of the people that go there end up eating at a place close by, and they leave stuff there. And the people that work at the place close by, they take the stuff as memorabilia, and then they, like, show it to people and stuff that want to know.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely a lot of interesting stuff going on surrounding that whole thing. And, like, as soon as you have a bunch of grown men putting up giant wooden owls and walking up and down with torches and robes, I mean, that's, like, not normal.
It's probably Walter Cronkite, too, that plays the owl. So, like, they put on some sort of record where Walter Cronkite's saying, like, I am the spirit, and, you need to give me a sacrifice in order to stay here for however long you want to stay here and and own this land or whatever. And that's the whole thing. And it's Walter Cronkite's voice. Like, what? Wow.
I didn't know that.
Crazy.
And, I'm reading here. I'm reading into something here, and as far as I'm aware, Snopes, as a website, what they do what they're supposed to be doing is fact checking articles and stuff like that. So technically, they're not a B2B business. They're not a business to business, right? Mm-hmm. So why would they have clients? Now, here's the funny thing, is that one of the claims that they're disputing is Snopes has no employees and its owner has zero investigative research experience, and Facebook has hired him to fact check the news on FB. And Soros and the DNC have just been exposed as Snopes' only client. What does that tell you? That's the claim. Mm-hmm. First off, if they're trying to debunk that, why, like, all they have to say is that we aren't client-based. We're not a client-based company.
I think they're playing the opposition. They're doing the controlled opposition route.
Oh, that's absolute controlled opposition, because if they just simply said we don't have clients, then boom, that would shut that shit down. But instead, they're trying to fucking over-explain it. Like, you gotta look at the proof in the pudding. And I mean, again, it's just my opinion, but it's my interpretation of what I'm reading right now, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And this is their words. I'm using their site, and
it's like a lawyer wrote it. Like that's how I skipped through it, and like it's like a lawyer wrote it, so they can't be sued or something. Like that's pretty much it.
No, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Meanwhile, they're trying to get you to go to some dating site on the right.
Oh yeah. Oh, and I'm getting cell phone tracker fucking ads now because I was actually trying to track down some people's cell phone numbers. I got people coming up to me on Facebook and on different places giving me their phone numbers and stuff, saying, "Oh, text me." Yeah, have fun getting my phone number. Actually, my phone number is publicly available, so if they were smart, they'd just be able to find it. But the fact that they're asking me for it tells me that they don't even know what they're doing. But I mean, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
It's very easy to get my phone number. I mean, I publicly fucking posted it, but
yeah, me too. Because I like make leather, so it's like whatever.
Yeah. And I have a business, and I use my personal number.
I don't make leather. I mean, I use leather and make stuff out of it.
Yeah, whatever. But wow. Oh, wait, hang on. Here's a formal admission. It says, it is true that many of us do not have formal training in journalism. If you consider a degree to be formal training, we chose, as many journalists do, to learn our craft through painstaking experience and learned expertise instead, using our educations to deepen and broaden our specialties. Just like every other armchair fucking warrior on the internet. And that's your Snopes.
Pretty much.
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of phone tracker, geez, they're trying to sell you one on the right there. What is going on?
Oh, yeah. No, they're advertising cell phone trackers because I just looked it up on YouTube. On Google earlier today.
Oh, okay. So they're just doing that. It's tracking what you want to look at type of thing.
Targeted browser advertising.
Thank you. Yeah. That's it. That's what I was trying. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at this. For the record, the man in the left-hand photograph is Hungarian entrepreneur and former Prime Minister Gordon Bajnai. We know this because reverse image search indicated that the photograph was lifted directly from Wikimedia Commons. The man on the right, per Martin Schenk of LeadStories.com, is Rocket Boom's Andrew Barron. Like, look at the name dropping going on here. Once again, using a photograph stolen from Wikimedia Commons without attribution and cropped and distorted slightly, which can confound reverse image searches. So, basically, going back up to this meme with the Snopes CEO, Soros, and the Snopes CEO, 100%.
So it's not a Snopes CEO, right? It's not him. So it's like the meme is not true. So they could have probably just went along with that thing, right?
Yeah.
It's false. Like they shouldn't have even gone into the other thing, right? But like obviously, if they start defending themselves so firmly and saying, "Oh no, we wouldn't do anything wrong. We don't have any clients. We don't have this and that," right?
So is this a division tactic and on the like playing the opposite side kind of thing?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if that exact meme was made by Snopes themselves, probably.
I know, right? Like his people
or some group. I mean, even right now, like every day, you see another Trump meme, like another crafty, clever photoshopped meme with Trump's head stuck on something. You know what I mean? And hey, there's some clever guys out there and clever gals out there who do some fun stuff with Photoshop and make some, funny shit. you know, or whatever they interpret as being funny. Sure, that's great. But there's certain bits that come out that are definitely, most definitely, they don't have any place. Like, anybody who knows this fucking shit wouldn't produce a fucking meme like this.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I
If
mean?
they don't want to be instantly discredited, they wouldn't do it.
No,
like,
no.
Nobody wants to be instantly discredited if they're a genuine person.
But if they want to get an army of fucking dummies who don't know the difference to just start using mob mentality and backing up some bullshit, guess what? There's a fucking army of idiots out there ready to back your bullshit. So, I mean, this is where we are today. I'm sorry to say this, and I hate to use the R word, but people are retards. Like, a lot of people are. And it's the sad truth. And people buy into this shit. And the people that don't, hey, I tip my hat to you, but a lot of them are also not willing to think outside of the box and think for themselves also. So, I mean, we got to fight on both fronts now. You know, you got the easily duped retards, and then you got the other retards who just don't think for themselves and just take whatever they get from the mainstream media and believe the shit that Snopes says. So, I mean, you got both sides, and it's, man, it's a really, really hilly terrain to navigate, let me tell you. Fuck.
Yeah, and like the only thing that I can like really tell people is to always like double check where you get your information from, and like look for it yourselves and come to your own conclusions. Like base it on the facts that you can find out, and base it on science, right? I mean, my theory about
always go to the
based on science, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Go to the source.
Yeah, always go to the source.
Just adding to your thing, yeah, always go to the source, because like that's where you're going to find conclusion in a form instead of a copy of a conclusion.
And the other important thing is go to multiple sources. Go to as many sources as you can find, and then kind of draw your own conclusions. I mean, sometimes reading between the lines helps you navigate through that bullshit, and you can figure out, because there's always three sides to a story, right? So, I mean, you kind of have to use common sense, logic, the education that you have at your disposal, as well as all the information that's being given to you. And always know in the back of your mind that somebody is always fucking lying to you in some capacity. Like, you have to know this. And if you don't, oh, I pray for you. Anyway, sorry, that was my that's my rant over for the moment. Anyway, until my next rant.
No, I agree.
Rant to be continued.
So, guys, I think I just came across this, but there has been an assassination attempt on Maduro, the president of Venezuela.
Oh, really?
And during a speech, So, like, this also fits into our topic of division, because I believe Venezuela is one of the, like, testing grounds where they employ a lot of their kind of outside-funded protests tactics, much as they did back in the Arab Spring, right, when they were protesting, bringing up all those people to protest on Tahrir Square in Cairo. Similar things they're doing to Venezuela right now, and the country is sinking into turmoil. And like, it's like many people just want to blame, oh, it's like the socialist economy, and like, what did you expect? Like, it's communism there, so this happens every time. But actually, I think a large part to the like situation there can also be attributed to like foreign influencers, and obviously the intelligence services of the United States, which have a keen interest to bring down the current government in Venezuela. And there was an assassination attempt recently, yeah, on the president.
Do you have a link for that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, we'll pop that
up. It's crazy what is happening in that country, because it would be like Antifa on steroids and actual dangerous, like Antifa. Because that is what we have happening in Venezuela. We have a bunch of groups that are really resulting to militant tactics, to basically, assassinating people, to basically throwing Molotov cocktails everywhere, instigating riots, and turning everything into chaos, pretty much.
Right.
So I'll send you the link, right?
Yeah, send it to me on here on Skype. And here's the funny thing, and it's not funny at all. It's actually quite horrible. And, these groups like Antifa and BLM and what have you that are doing what they're doing at these protests and what have you in America, well, we already know that the American... the police are basically armed to the teeth, like as if they were military. So that kind of shit won't fly very far. I mean, the second thing is, that would throw a town into martial law the second some shit fucking had like an outbreak or what have you. But that being said, I could see in other countries that are already destabilized, where they don't have that kind of infrastructure of police, where it would just be on, and they would become their own militant group, and then, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what's happening in Venezuela right now.
All right, so I've pulled that up. Let's just share that. So Venezuela makes 6 arrests in alleged Maduro assassination attempt. I wonder if we could play this and not get a copyright strike.
I think CNN is actually fine. Like, CNN is not going to give you copyright strikes. You got to at least give them that. I mean, they are fake news and everything, but they don't give you copyright strikes. Because they'll never get a second
chance to see their first concert.
The apparent attack happened while Mr. Maduro was giving a speech on live television
during
a military ceremony. This is the picture that Venezuelans saw. You can see him and his wife react to the first explosion, and then you see this. Officials say drones armed with explosives detonated near him. There was a second explosion, and soldiers broke ranks and scattered. Video also shows bodyguards surrounding President Maduro with shields and taking him off the stage. That's when he's rushed to safety. Hours later, Mr. Maduro addressed the nation again. He revisited a conspiracy theory that he uses often, blaming an international right-wing plot for trying to oust him. The president also accused outgoing Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos of being behind the attack. A source with the Colombian government tells CNN that the allegation is baseless.
I'll be right back.
Mr. Maduro also had this message for U.S. President Donald Trump.
Preliminary investigations have indicated to us that there are various financial backers of this attempt on my life. They live in the United States, in the state of Florida. Hopefully, President Donald Trump's government is willing to fight these terrorist groups, which are attempting great attacks against countries on this continent, in this case, Venezuela.
Okay, let's examine what we know. CNN's Rafael Romo has been speaking with Venezuelan officials. Can you try and reconstruct what we know happened today?
Yeah, I had a phone conversation with the Venezuelan Attorney General earlier today, and I asked him specifically, is there any evidence linking the Colombian government to this, as President Maduro claims? He refused to answer the question. I also asked, what about the claim that the United States or people living in the United States had anything to do with it? Again, they're talking about all of this without really showing any evidence.
They haven't shown anything so far.
And it's the same pattern that we've seen before. Something happens, it is always the far right, it is always Colombia, it is always the United States or the empire, as they like to claim. But the Attorney General was very emphatic. He says he was sitting right there, right next to the First Lady, and that he saw the drone when it exploded. He said it was a very violent explosion, and that it was indeed what the president claims to be, which is an assassination attempt.
Huh.
Don't juggle your home life.
Right, that's enough. That's enough there.
Yeah. So basically, if it happens in Venezuela, the own government is behind it, and it's an inside job. If it happens in the United States, you must be a conspiracy nut job if you believe that JFK was killed by, somebody else than Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah,
but if it's like in Venezuela, it's obviously Maduro instigated it himself, right? I don't know, man. I don't know. Like,
I mean, we all know about the Bay of Pigs. And Cuba. I mean, a lot of things have happened that pretty much deter against the credibility of the United States, at least the military wing of operations. And when it comes to they got these catchphrases like the war on terror, you got the war on drugs. Speaking of the war on drugs, because Colombia comes up in this, and this is a huge deal, is that the entire Colombian government got a regime change many years ago, about 20 years ago, right after they got rid of,
Pablo, maybe?
Pablo, yes. As soon as they got rid of him, the entire government got an overhaul. And guess who was involved? That was the American government that basically did the regime change. So since then, now they call it narco-tourism. But they're still producing cocaine. And where do you think...
Who's importing it? Right?
Where do you think it's going? Where do you think it's going? And it goes, and probably the first port of harbor would be Florida.
Yeah, so, definitely. Like, that's how it was during Pablo Escobar's time. He would, send all of the cocaine to Florida, to Miami, and that's how, basically the addiction
and that's
problem
probably
started.
How the Americans are doing it, too.
Yeah, exactly. And, if you think about it, Pablo Escobar was heavily backed by the CIA. Nobody's going to tell you that. They're going to tell you that they, on one hand, they had the DEA fighting against him, and on the other hand, they had the CIA propping him up. So it's waste of resources, right?
It's funny because it's a backhanded battle because on one front they need the business, on the other front they need the PR, like the public relations.
Yeah.
So it ends up becoming this. It's not a war on drugs. It's a war on liability. It's a war on liability at the end of the day. It's like, oh, well, we don't want to look like we're the bad guy, but Jesus Christ, your military is still down there in Afghanistan right now protecting poppy fields.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got the Taliban out of there, and the heroin is being produced and being sent out of fucking Afghanistan. No problem. No problemo. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, full of fucking double standards. Entire situation is fucked.
It's a great point that you're making there, because as soon as the United States invaded Afghanistan, the heroin production went up by a lot, basically. You can look it up, because basically what the Mujahideen did in 2001 was get rid of all the production, burn down the poppy fields, and, then the United States came in, and supposedly they should be fighting against the spread of drugs around the world. But actually in a couple of years, they got it up to the levels of production from before, when they weren't around. So
And you know what? Since then now, we've had like opiate derivatives and synthetics. Now, fentanyl is one of the biggest threats to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
it's
it's a
prescription
huge
drugs,
problem.
right?
It's a huge problem
It's
now. And
yeah.
hey, nice war on drugs. Glad that's working out there, buddy. You know, yeah.
The war on drugs is one of the most like ridiculous things that I have seen.
It's the most hypocritical thing I've ever seen. Not the most, but it's up there in the top two.
Yeah, probably. And I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, and it's still going on, right? And we'll still have it going on for a long time, and it's going to continue bringing in heroin from Afghanistan and from cocaine from Colombia, and all of the trafficking, all of the drug trafficking is really run to a large part by the intelligence services. Whoa. And actually, I also want to bring in. But I also want to bring in we talked a little bit about the Yugoslav war last time, and I didn't mention this, but there was a large drug trafficking component to the whole war in Yugoslavia because
I'm
Albania,
sure there was. I'm sure there was.
Albania and Kosovo are pretty much like hotspots for trafficking of drugs, and before the drugs leave, for Western Europe, they have to go through the Balkans.
Yeah.
So that's how they secured that route there by basically,
is it not true? Sorry, I just hold the thought for a second, but just for the listeners, is it not true that a lot of these trade routes were established from the very beginning for salt? It's a salt trade routes from the ocean and from from India, and then the spice trades. I mean, a lot of these routes were already pre-established, so they were regular travel routes, weren't they?
About the trafficking. It depends. It depends. Like sometimes it will take the same route because it's geographically like the fastest way to get these places, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm speaking of. And,
and
these are thousands of years old, like these routes.
Yeah.
So it's no new news to a lot of people that these are the routes that would be taken. I mean, you throw in technology and you throw in planes and what have you. I mean, of course things kind of change over time, but I mean the spice routes and the salt routes were basically what marked that trade. Of course, I mean opiates and heroin were always a part of it, as well as cannabis and other things as well, but
that's not the biggest problem, right? Cannabis is like not a problem because
it was never a problem until it was made.
It was never really until Reefer Madness came out. That movie in 1929 that basically scared. Well, I don't know if it was that year, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But it scared everybody of cannabis and made people think that cannabis would have all these crazy effects on you, that people would go mad, go mental if they took a puff, and that's obviously not the case. As we are finding out right now, it actually cannabis oil has a lot of medicinal benefits.
It sure does.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I went out. When I went to Mexico, I learned firsthand what that stuff can do for somebody, especially with cancer. Somebody
or with epileptic seizures as well. It would help people.
Same thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, dude. I mean, but going back though to these routes, I mean, they were common knowledge of trade And heroin, during the early days, I mean, back in like the 16 to the 1800s, as far as I'm aware anyway, is that heroin was like, or opium rather, sorry, was a commonly traded item. Like, it was as good as cash. It was good as gold. And was only moderated by those who traded it. So, I mean, once you throw in a governing factor, something like, let's say somebody who doesn't control it, like the Americans at the time, of course they're going to step in and then say, hey, we want fucking control. They did the same thing in Colombia with cocaine. Because as soon as they got Pablo out of there, they ousted Escobar. You know, it's funny because there's still millions and millions of dollars that are buried in places that nobody knows where his money is in Colombia.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah. Oh man, he was making like billions and billions of dollars.
Oh yeah.
So that was an insane thing, and like it not only like ruined like it damaged Colombia to a very large degree, and it also damaged like especially like the lower classes in the United States that would be living in those neighborhoods where the drugs would be coming in and getting traded and everything. So it really increased the crime like in the United States. Yeah, it destroyed those communities.
I'll tell you one funny aspect though. One funny aspect of this is that music in the 80s would not be as good if it weren't for Colombian cocaine.
Yeah, probably wouldn't.
So I have no idea how, because it shaped the 80s, let me tell you. It shaped the 80s.
I was like really young back then, so I don't know. But
I was young too, but I was, I was born in the 70s, but
yeah.
So I was able to.
Me too.
I was able to remember the 80s, and it's like, man, if you only know how fucked up it was, the 80s were like it was like a bad Teletubbies dream that you couldn't wake up from.
Well, it's like what I remember about the 80s is there's a lot less things, like things on the walls.
No.
Things around.
There was spandex. There was hockey hair and torpedo.
But yeah, that was like fashion. I'm talking about like the backgrounds, like the backgrounds today in the today like world, like are always like there's a bunch of shit back there and on things and stuff like that. I remember the 80s; it was all like kind of plain.
Yeah, well, in the 80s, we didn't have social media. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have, you know what? We had kids who wanted to actually go outside and play. Imagine that, going outside and playing. Fuck sakes. We didn't have PlayStation. Yeah, it was a completely different fucking world.
Yeah, we didn't have internet. We didn't have like how many people, like another topic, how many people are addicted to like all of this social media stuff and like hanging around Instagram all day and posting pictures of themselves eating breakfast and this and that. Like we didn't have it back then, and like yeah, I mean it's crazy. I mean if these people would actually like invest maybe just a fraction of their time that they're spending doing productive things and maybe furthering their career and life goals, then they would be happier. But like this, they are happy because they have a bunch of people following them on their pictures. So I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
So what's your take on the whole this George Soros thing? Do you think it's gonna get worse? Because I kind of do.
it always like gets worse. I mean, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, it gets worse. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that they would have maybe instigated this coup in Ukraine. I wouldn't have thought that they would be as mad as to like go and actually antagonize the world's largest nuclear power, Russia,
right,
in that manner, right? And but you know, I hope that like somebody can like show them where their borders are, and like truly like tell them this is this and no step further. But like I don't know, I think the division and the wounds that it's caused in society, and like the fact that people can't even have rational conversations today most of the time, is really damaging to society as a whole. Because like as soon as you go and like maybe you just want to talk about the president, let's say, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna have two sides that are just gonna scream at each other.
Then you're gonna get some SJW fucking hipster cocksucker just jump down your throat and say, "Oh my God, you're insulting people, and you're I'm offended."
Yeah.
And then he's gonna run away. He's gonna run away and cry, and then he's gonna make an article about you and how much he had to cry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I mean,
yeah.
This is where we are now. I mean, they're, you know, like in Ferguson, they're going to tear down statues. I mean, we touched on this in the last podcast where they're tearing down, you know, statues because they're offensive, and I mean, it's bizarre, man. We live in this weird freaking planet now where it's like just causing offense is enough to get you thrown in jail. I mean, based on statute alone.
Yeah, you know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of that episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where Wesley Crusher ends up like catching a ball and
he trips in the garden. Yeah,
and like, because of that, they have to kill him.
They have to kill him because it's such a peachy planet that everyone's happy-go-lucky. But if you fuck up, you're dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it next generation? I don't know.
Yeah, Next Generation.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, what's this called?
Yeah,
Will Wheaton.
Yeah, it's Will Wheaton at his best. Oh, what an annoying character. I hated Wesley Crusher. I actually hated Wesley Crusher a little bit more than I hated Carl from The Walking Dead.
Carl.
At least his dad pronounced his name right when he died. Spoiler alert. Coral dies.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know. Oh, shit. Yeah, I didn't watch it. I stopped watching it a long time ago because it was kind of repetitive. Like,
oh, it's totally repetitive. It's a show I love.
It's like they go on and like all the time.
It seems to always be about people against people, and then the zombies are just kind of there.
Yeah.
Just to kind of like herd them around
the zombies,
to like fight the other people.
The zombies are like pylons or like delineators. Like they're just basically like fluorescent delineators that'll pretty much chew your face off if you get too close. And it's just people.
It's like lava. It's like a lava. The old game where you'd say like, don't touch the lava, and you'd have to stay above on things and stuff. If you touch lava, you die.
Yeah.
It's like that would be your zombies.
Yeah.
Your zombies are going to get you in the lava.
Yeah.
And like I think what like the show really
fight you and die.
Yeah. I think what the show is telling you is like even if you would like face a threat such big as like a zombie apocalypse, people would still not come together. People would still be fighting against each other.
I think that's the main thing, and I think that's completely incorrect. And I think we kind of show that element that's incorrect.
And I think it's wrong. You know what? Actually, this is a great point, and a great point to finish up on for the podcast, because you know what? The Walking Dead paints a picture of a world where everybody just wants to kill each other for each other's shit, pretty much. And that,
exactly.
I mean, that's where we are after
Avengers.
8 seasons. Yeah, everybody just wants to fight each other and take each other's shit. But look, the world isn't that dismal. People have a tendency to want to group together. People have a tendency to want to not hurt. People have a tendency to not want to cause harm to other people because they know what it's like to hurt. And you know, when we are constantly being fed bullshit that makes us feel like, oh my God, we have to be in competition with each other, guess what? It starts like it creates habit forming ideals, and this isn't right, and it's not the way. It might make a good graphic novel or a good series, but people buy into this shit, and it doesn't make me happy to see this kind of stuff being projected onto people. Like, I'm a responsible TV viewer. I watched Dexter. I still haven't hacked up anybody with a sawzall and dumped them out on a boat in the lake. So, you know, I consider myself a responsible TV viewer, but others aren't so responsible. So they might take on the attitudes that are depicted and portrayed in some of these shows. I'm not saying to stop making the shows, but what I'm trying to say is we got to make the people smarter, which the school system isn't doing. I don't know what the actual solution is, but I'm just pointing out the problem, I guess. Anyway, what do you guys have to say about that?
I agree basically right there with what you said. And like, yeah, I mean, it is like social conditioning through media and through movie and like series and film, and it happens like all the time, basically. So really, what they are doing is like, you know, telling you with The Walking Dead is like, oh, you will never come together. You will never like yeah,
you'll never
united.
find peace. You'll never create
Never
civilization.
find peace,
And I disagree. Yeah. I politely disagree. I know there's always going to be somebody who's going to do something. I mean, look at history. History will tell you everything. I mean, we've got scads of horrible leaders who really abuse entire civilizations. But it's not the leaders that define what society is. It's the society that defines what society is. It's the people themselves. It's the mass majority. The leaders that do the horrible things are not the people that are being done unto. You know what I mean? Like, it's the people themselves, and that's what I strive and look forward to in a positive sense. We gotta just continue getting rid of these horrible leaders that want to exploit and kill us. And again, I will say, we do not need to be governed. We don't need these assholes governing us. We can govern ourselves, and if we just simply ignore them, they will go away. What about their drones and their armaments? Guess what? Fight that shit too, because you can't fucking do this passively while you're going to sleep. You just fucking fight it. Period. Until the last one of us doesn't drop. But anyway, that's just another story.
And that tells you why they want to disarm the public, right?
It does. And every time they disarm the public, every single time in record history, there's always, they disarm the public, it's followed by a massive depopulation.
And like people say that all the time, but it is so true. It is so true.
Look it up, and then you see the list, and the list like tells everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can make your own list by going through each individual thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? It's happening again right now.
They're pushing for that as well. And like, I wouldn't be surprised if Soros is again behind a lot of these NGOs pushing for gun control in the United States, and has been for like the last 20, 30 years, ever since Columbine happened.
Well,
because that was really the big event, right?
I mean, hey, Snopes confirmed one thing, that he's going for the progressive liberal side.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that.
So, I mean, look, I don't give a shit about left, right, liberal, conservative. I don't consider those things when I consider how I feel about my common man or woman. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't look at things that way. But apparently other people do. But on the side of this, though, it was good to be liberal at one time. And now it's bad to be liberal. You know, like I mean, fuck, who can pay attention and who can keep up? I mean, crying out loud, this is the most bizarre 10 years I could say I've ever tenured. I'm using words. But yeah, no, this is the most bizarre 10 years I've ever experienced, because it went from liberal being a good thing to liberal now being, well, basically an SJW freak. But this is like, I don't know, man. I think this was concocted. I think this was completely and totally built by a controlling fucking factor. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And like, yeah, I think both sides are pretty much bought and paid for. So, like, there's no like savior that is going to come from either one of the political parties. That is obviously true, and like we've seen it so many times. Like, people will say anything and compromise anything to get into power, and unfortunately, it's been like that way too often.
Yeah,
I think.
No, that's true. Yeah. Well, we've been on now for about 2 hours, guys. Figure we can close this out. We can do this again next Sunday if you guys like.
Yeah, whatever. I'm done.
Because there's still a lot to go on about with this division shit.
Yeah, we didn't even get to like Black Lives Matter and like the whole racial divide and conquer line that they like to play that much.
Not really, no. I mean, we're just kind of warming up into it. I mean, we could do an 8-hour podcast like the old days, but hey.
Sure.
But no, we could keep it short and sweet.
Yeah.
I do value my sleep these days. But yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we just kind of scratched the surface last week. Kind of got a little bit more into the George Soros bit tonight. But the BLM, even a feminist movement, I mean, holy crow. I mean, we still got a shitstorm of shit to cover. So maybe next Sunday we'll do it again.
Yeah, for sure. I'd be down.
What are you saying there, Kons?
Yes, I'm totally down too.
All right, cool, dude.
Great. Great.
Want to do it for the same time?
I think.
What time? 8?
8.
Yeah, that works for me. I mean, does that work for you?
It works for me because like that I can go to sleep and then like wake up and be fresh for the podcast, and I'm like, or stay up all night and like yeah, it's pretty good.
We can call you Fig.
You want to know the funny thing?
We can call you Figgy.
Sorry?
Figgy.
Huh? Yeah, you can call me that way.
Call you Figgy.
Figgy.
Figgy. Oh, FYGP, Figgy.
Figgy. Yeah, Figgy. Yeah.
Hey, you want to know the funny thing? Is that 8 o'clock Sunday night was the original slot for Rapid Fire Free for All back in the day.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. Oh, we got the time slot back.
The time slot. That's good. Prime time programming.
Totally.
It's like a tribute to yourself.
Yeah, I just tributed myself. And everybody that was involved, of course. Jesus.
Yeah, and everybody involved.
I'm not being a total. I'm not going to be a total narcissist. Come on.
Yeah.
But well, in closing, guys. Well, let's start. Let's start with you, Conspiracy. What would you like to say?
I don't know. Like, thanks for having me. It was cool to have this conversation, and good to get all that kind of perceptional ways out in order to see the different perspectives of each other and how we see division and how they're used in this tactical way.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
I basically ditto what Conspiracy just said, and I look forward to many other interesting discussions with both of you guys, and yeah, it's great.
Well, FYGP,
Definitely.
It was an absolute pleasure talking to both of you gentlemen, and well, hey, we'll see if we can round up a couple of people to make a guest appearance next Sunday. For everybody listening, tomorrow on Monday, we're going to be doing basically a part 2 to the Gematria show that we did with the Gematrinator and Conspiracy, and a couple other special appearances from some very very knowledgeable people.
It's going to be...
you know who they are. Cons?
You want me to tell?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so it's Zachary K. Hubbard, and he's known as Chase, but essentially mostly known as Young Decoder.
Right. That sounds fucking cool as hell. So yeah,
I'm excited. That sounds like it's going to be a good one.
That will be at 7 o'clock Pacific time, which will be 10 o'clock Eastern time, which would also be 4 a.m. FYGP time.
Yeah.
The 60 time.
So, with that being said, yeah, I appreciate all you coming out and listening to us tonight. It's always an absolute pleasure. Please leave your comments down below. I didn't really pay much attention to the chat today, so I do apologize. I had a lot of window switching and things to pay attention to. So, but for that, I say party on, keep going, and where the hell is my streaming page? Can't turn this thing off.
You can't?
Yeah, I found it. I had my screen minimized. But anyway, guys, peace out. Much love.
Peace out, everybody.
Don't do anything I wouldn't do. All right.